Okay, so all right. Hi, this is Lynn, and welcome today. I'm glad I can see Sheila's already here. I have a little bit of a different guest today. This is the beautiful Shay, and she has agreed to come and talk to me and share some information with you about her history. She is not on the carnivore diet, and we're going to talk a little bit about the whys and the hows of all that. So, thank you so much for joining me today. And I think what I want to start out with is going back to just the beginning of your life and how it started. If you could share that with us.
Well, I started off kind of in a very crazy and dysfunctional environment. I was born in California. I live in Washington now. I was born into a super dysfunctional and abusive home. So, Child Protective Services took me and my siblings away. And so I ended up in foster care until I was about 6 years old. And then I was adopted. So that's a little snippet.
So going back to your home as a like how long were you in your birth home?
I believe until I was about 1, 1.5.
Okay.
So, between 1.5 to 6, I was in homes.
Okay. And do you know why you and your siblings were taken away?
It was mainly due to neglect. I
Okay.
had my six-year-old sister watching me. She was 6 at the time. She's 6 years older than me. So, a six-year-old watching over 3 younger siblings. Uh, my older siblings were out of the house at this time, and they didn't really know the extent of, the neglect, otherwise they would have stepped in if they were able to.
And do you know anything about your health as an infant?
I know that I was diagnosed with, failure to thrive, which just means I didn't grow, when I was supposed to. I know there was a stint of 2 years where I didn't grow at all. So by the time I came to my adoptive family at 5.5, I was the size of a small 3-year-old. uh, because I didn't grow,
Yeah. Were
and
you
so I was
sick?
still wearing toddler sizes at that time.
That's crazy. Now, were you sick as an infant?
Yeah, I was sick a lot with different, lung issues, and so I think it was bronchioli I don't remember what they're called. Starts with a B.
Bronchiolitis?
Yeah,
Mhm.
something yeah, I think that, which then carried over as a teenager of I developed asthma, um, I developed always anytime I've been sick, it's usually in my lungs.
Mhm.
Which is unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah. How about your gut? I know you told me
Um,
you were in the hospital when you were an infant with get some abdominal issues too.
yeah, so I didn't digest food the way I was supposed to. So I was constantly having, like, gastrointestinal issues,
Mm.
I think it's called gastritis, which I still periodically have, flare-ups.
Yeah.
Um,
I think there was a gastroenteritis that put you in the hospital
yeah,
as well, huh?
yeah, so I was hospitalized as a little baby because just neglect and
Yeah. I mean, given the dysfunctionality, I understand your birth dad was not in the home, he was in prison,
was in prison, yep.
and, the birth mom was left with a myriad of kids. I think you have a
Yeah,
total of 8.
there's there's 8 of us total, I'm number 7.
Yeah, and so the nutrition, I'm sure, was not good
No,
from
not at
the
all,
beginning. Yeah, and
not
so
at
in
all.
foster care, you were in and out of foster care, but you did spend a significant amount of time in one particular home.
I did, yeah.
Um, and I know you do have some memories of that home that aren't that great. Um, do you wanna share a little bit about what you experienced there?
Yeah, so that was um I mean, I'm very grateful for the family I have now. They've helped me heal through this trauma, and it's still a kind of battle, to this day, but I've got a great support system, so start with that. I any abuse you can think of that a child would go through or should not go through, no child should go through this, I went through in that home. Um, I went through sexual abuse from the father, um, and mind you, I was, like, 2 and 3, 4 years old at the time, um, and the mother, used food as a weapon, and I very much like, as a kid, you don't have much control and moving around a lot. I think that might have been my 10th home at that time because when I got adopted, that was my 12th. So I think that was my 10th home. So the only thing I felt like I had any control over was food. So I would refuse to eat, um, which didn't help. And I still struggle with that of when I'm stressed out, I stop eating,
Mhm.
where some people struggle with when they're stressed, they eat a lot. Um, when I'm stressed, I subconsciously starve myself.
So what would happen
Really
in
didn't
this foster home when you refuse to eat?
I have a very 2 specific, very vivid memories. The more mild one is, we had this kind of plastic, picnic table, like child's picnic table, in the backyard, and I was refusing to eat my sandwich, like a ham and cheese sandwich, and so she hosed it down with the hose, and forced me to eat it. The other one
It's disgusting. It's horrible.
Yeah, and I still don't like ham to this day. I don't know
Understand.
if it's because of that or it's just I just don't like ham. The other one was, I was refusing to eat my scrambled eggs, like any toddler refuses to eat certain foods every
Mhm.
once in a while. Um, but I got whipped and beat with a leather dog leash and tied up with that said leash and had cold scrambled eggs stuffed down my throat. So those are the most vivid memories I have with food specifically. There's more, but, those are the 2 food ones.
It's just horrible that a little child can experience that sort of thing in a foster home
Yeah,
where these are people who've been approved
right,
as a foster family, and then these sorts of things happen.
right.
So, absolutely tragic. So, if you have and okay, so I've got some comments here. So, Jill, so glad to see the live notice. So happy to have you here. Absolutely. And we know that Sheila's here. Um, Esther Vetty Hunter, hello, says, I'm glad to be able to tune in. 61-year-old who have been trying my best to commit to this lifestyle. So glad to glean from you ladies. Well, welcome. And I hope that we can encourage you. And Sheila says, thank you, Shay, for sharing your story. 69 suffered similar abuse. Oh my. And to this day, I'm still living with the consequences. I'm
Yeah,
finding it too triggering to watch. That's okay, Sheila. It's all right. We're not going to talk anymore about the abuse. So if you can stick around, great. But if not, completely understand. Um, so we haven't really shared one key part. And so I just wanted to give her a chance to share her backstory. And you may know this already, but Shay is my daughter. So we're the adoptive
yeah,
family that have been blessed to have Shay. So I get to be part of this story from this point on, because
yeah.
prior to this, you were actually 5.5 when you came to us. We were your 12th home.
Mhm.
You were tiny. I'm going to go ahead and add some pictures here. So you were little. So, and these
Yeah,
are some of the earlier pictures that we have. The first picture here with the red is like maybe a few days after we got you. She
yeah.
was
That's
adorable.
almost exactly, 22 years ago.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, so you're 27 now.
I am,
And
yeah,
the picture with you and your brother, I put this here just to show this your size difference. So at this, they're only 10.5 months difference in age. And at this point, with her in the little pink top, they were both 6 years old. So you can see the size difference between them. And she was 32 pounds at 5.5. So she was the size of a 3-year-old, and she wore 3T, and food was a big issue. And I remember our social worker telling us about the issues that you had at the time. We didn't know, and the social worker didn't know about the abuse when it came to anything. But we got some comments. Oh, God bless you both. Thank you. It does take strength to rise above it all.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jill didn't catch that you were my daughter. So,
Yeah.
but obviously, if they knew about the abuse, they would have pulled you from that home early.
Yeah.
But what they did tell me is that you did have control issues when it came to food.
Yeah.
And so, do you remember the first meal we had together?
No, I don't remember the first meal. I just
One of the
remember
earlier meals when
I remember we were eating, we were sitting at dinner. Growing up, family dinner was a part of life. So we sat down at the dinner table together. But I was refusing to eat. And he said, "Oh, I guess I'm going to give it to your brother." And I immediately said, "No." And then I started eating because I didn't want to give my food to someone else, but I didn't want to eat my food.
Right, exactly. So,
Yeah.
hi, Jason. Glad to see you here. Jason's been following me for giving me some awesome comments for a very long time. So, I'm glad to see that Jason's here. This is a picture of her with my mom, who's deceased now. But so yeah, so early on, I knew about the control issues. So I determined I was not going to make it an issue, and I was going to just say, okay, fine. You don't have to eat if you don't want to eat. I'll give your food to your brother. And there was that early competitiveness with you and
Yeah.
him anyway. So that kind of, went along with that. So I know that growing up, you had been, when you came to us, you had twice been diagnosed with failure to thrive.
Yeah.
And the doctors also brought up something called constitutional growth delay, which right before this live stream, we were looking it up to make sure we knew the difference between the two.
Yeah.
Failure to thrive is diagnosed as an infant that's not growing like they should. From what I've read, constitutional growth delay is kind of like a prediction that there's going to be a delay in growth later, and like a delay in reaching puberty. We read that they do like a hand x-ray and see the bones of the hand and determine that. So we ended up beating that. I guess delay, they say the delay would be getting like a female getting her period at 14 or later, and you ended up getting your period at 13. So we
Yeah.
beat that a little bit.
Mhm.
But it did take, when I would take you to the doctor when we first got you, you were less than 5 percentile in both height and weight.
Yeah.
It took about 3 years
Mhm.
of being in our home before you were able to finally start to grow.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it took me that amount of time to be comfortable with you as a mom to
Yeah.
me. And I think it took about that time to feel like, okay, I'm safe. I'm good here. I can stop testing boundaries.
Yeah, yeah, you were a challenge. You were a big, you were a very angry little girl when you first
I
came.
was.
And there were some early signs that once you came to us, that there had been abuse. And
Yeah.
so I don't remember how many months it was. It may have only been a couple months into when we had you that we ended up filing a suspected child abuse report.
Right.
Um, I didn't like how they handled that investigation, because I mean, imagine you have this little child, 5 years old, who's been in and out of homes, strangers in and out of her life, um, all that, there's a fear there. And
Yeah.
especially there's a trust issue when it comes to adults lying to you, basically saying,
Right.
we care about you, we love you, and then hurting you, or you get removed. So they had me bring you to I think it was UC Davis in California, and they put you in a room. They wouldn't even let me be in with you. They put you in a room with a bunch of adults. Do you remember that?
I remember feeling like a lab rat almost of I had a bunch of people staring at me and I just clammed up.
Yeah. Yeah. You wouldn't say anything. I don't know why they didn't just come into our home where
Right.
you're more comfortable and kind of make it more of a casual, familiar environment. But nothing ever came from that abuse allegation. Um, and but how long do you think it took before you started to feel enough security and started to see dad and I as your parents?
I mean, I think I knew right away that you were safe. Just it was
Mm,
just something about your presence that I immediately felt safe, but I questioned it because of how much I was lied to and just told, "Oh yeah, we're gonna keep you forever," which is not the case,
right.
obviously. So I needed to test the boundaries and see how far I can go to where if I'm bad enough, they'll send me back, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I did that for quite a few years, I think.
Oh yeah,
Um,
you put us
yeah,
to the test, that's for
I
sure.
did.
But we were committed and we were
Yeah,
determined that you were our daughter.
yeah,
And, we went through the FOSADOP program. So we were foster parents. We had to be technically foster parents for the first 6 months before
yeah,
they would allow us to file papers for adoption.
right.
Um, but from day one, we were committed. I
Yeah,
mean, we met you and 3 days later you were in our home.
yeah.
Yeah. So, we also had issues. I know when we put you in preschool and picked you up from preschool. I noticed how klutzy you were, and you were always tripping over yourself. Do you remember what I found out about that and why you were so klutzy?
I was wearing shoes 3 sizes too small,
That's
and
right.
those
So,
were the shoes I came with.
yeah, those are the
Um,
shoes you came with. Yeah. So that foster home where she was being abused, um,
yeah.
had her in shoes that were 3 sizes
And
too
a
small.
bunch of frilly girly clothes, and that was not me at all.
Yeah,
I hated anything frilly and girly.
yeah. Well, and that's not uncommon too when there's been abuse.
Yeah,
You know, not wanting to be an attractive girl
no.
and pretty is a common thing when there's been abuse. And I
Yeah,
remember, when I would tell you how pretty you looked, you'd cross your arms and you go, no, and
yeah,
you couldn't accept a
yeah,
compliment. Yeah.
right.
So I'm going to show a little picture of you. So weight wise, as a child, you were tiny, you were small, but this is you.
Yeah,
I call this your Selena Gomez era,
yeah.
where you did a
I
little bit of modeling there. You're a very beautiful girl,
I
and
think I was 11 or 12 there.
you were like 11 here, but you had a flat tummy.
I did, yeah.
So even though you had issues and you were small, you did grow, but you didn't have any issues with your belly. Uh,
Mm-mm.
now we ended up having. You want to talk about this?
So so I started school a year late, so it was caught a year late. So I got diagnosed with scoliosis, which is this curvature of the spine in 7th grade, 8th grade, 7th,
8th grade.
middle school.
Oh no, 7th grade. But you were the age of an 8th grader.
Yep. And so was diagnosed 7th grade and then had surgery 8th grade. And this was pre-surgery. The one on the right is them marking
Okay, this is the
the
day of your
incision.
surgery.
Yeah, that's them marking the incision area and where they're gonna uh, straighten it.
Mhm.
So if you're
Yeah.
good at geometry, I had my upper curve was 63 degrees and my lower curve was 43. So I was a big old question mark, and that was me actually standing straight up.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see the right shoulder just kind of bulging out because of the curve. Now you were running cross country.
Yeah, I was running cross country and track.
And then you did that fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. So what changed in sixth grade with your running?
It's my breathing started to be affected because my ribs had shifted, and we didn't know yet.
Mhm.
Um, and I started to like vomit when I was running because everything was being pressed on, and I didn't have as much airway as I normally would have.
Yeah, and
Um,
that it was putting pressure on your stomach.
yeah, I was putting pressure on my stomach. So if I ate more than, say, a measuring cup of food, I would regurgitate it all because I couldn't keep more than just that much food in my stomach.
Yeah, yeah.
So then I lost a lot of weight, 7th grade.
Mhm. Yeah, so you really didn't have any weight to lose anyways.
No, I didn't. I was pretty slim just because of being so athletic, and then, you can see how slender my face is,
Yeah, a little bit
and
puffy.
that's not just me being a preteen or an early teen, that's just me. I lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, here you were puffing your cheeks out, blowing out because of the fact that you were in so much pain. This was after her surgery, and
Yeah,
the picture on the left is the first time she got up, which was the day after her surgery, and just the pain on her face. And then the picture on the right was her first time trying to walk. So it was quite a painful
yeah.
surgery. So you ended up having how many? You had rods and you put in your spine.
I have 2 rods, 1 on either side, and I have 16 screws, up and down.
Mhm. Right, right. So how did that impact? I know it took you a while to recover. Were you ever able to run again?
No, I actually miss running, but it's too much impact on my back, so I've resulted, to just walking. So every once in a while, I'll walk with my mom, but I walk so much with my job, walking back and forth everywhere, that I get my steps in.
Yeah. And this was nice. This hospital, they had these MMA fighters come and visit
Yeah,
with the kids. This is a children's hospital down near Fresno, California.
yeah,
So this by the time the picture in the wheelchair was taken, this was quite a few days out. I think you were there
yeah.
for 6 days.
Yeah, I was there for 6 days. Recovery was expected to be 7, 8 days in the hospital and 6 to 8 weeks out of school. I was only in the hospital for 6 days and out total 4 weeks from school.
Yeah, yeah. Her recovery was amazing, but it just goes to show the strength that you have, because I remember the day after your surgery, the doctor said he wanted you to try to get up and walk twice, and
Yeah,
you did it 9 times.
I did.
She's like, "Oh, yeah, you want me to do it twice? Well, you just watch and see."
I like to prove people wrong.
That's right, that's right. So Esther Betty says, "Thank God for committed foster care providers. I work with IIH, and I work with the good as well as the not so good. For a while, all my clients were children from about 5 to 17 years old.
Yeah,
It's
it's
really hard to tell sometimes who's gonna be good and who's not."
yeah. More often than not, once you hit past that toddler age, statistically, you are less and less likely to be adopted. So
Right.
if I hadn't have been adopted when I was, I probably would never have been adopted just based on my age, unfortunately. That's typically
Yeah,
how the system works, statistically at least.
and we got a report, once we adopted you, we got your whole file, and in there was a report from a therapist that bad foster family had taken you to, and the therapist had commented about you eating out of dog
Yeah,
dish, like obviously attention getting things, and it's cry for
right.
help, and
Yeah,
mentioned that you were the worst child she'd ever seen and didn't think that you were going to be able to improve.
right.
And so based on that, I mean, I that therapist needs to be reported.
Oh, she was.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, our social worker
Yeah.
did end up reporting that therapist because the therapist ended up telling the foster mom to do this bonding exercise. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I had to so our garage door, like the door leading into our garage, was down a hallway, which was the laundry room was to one side and a bathroom was to the other side. And it was a short hallway. So she had a baby gate that I couldn't get over because I was so tiny, blocking the end of the hallway. And I had to sit straight up with my hands like this on my lap with my legs straight out, um, and sit like that for hours.
And I think what they explained to me was that nobody could interact with you except for the foster mom. This was
Yeah,
supposed to help bond with the foster mom.
yeah. And I could have one toy at a time.
One toy at a time. And from what I understand, that this was something that went on for like a year.
Yeah.
That this,
And
yeah,
then,
it's abusive. So that social worker was reported once
yeah.
we found out that that was happening. Also, we have Nadine. Hi, Nadine. Glad to have you here. So now these are after your surgery. So I just wanted to show
Yeah.
that.
These are both freshman year, actually.
Yeah.
Um, the one on the left is from when we lived in the Bay Area. And then that was my first school dance. And then the one on the right is my last day of school from my first high school
Yeah. Yeah.
before we moved.
Yeah. So, so even though you weren't able to exercise, and this was what, a couple of years after your surgery, or at
Yeah,
least a year and a half, maybe,
yeah,
you weren't able to really exercise, you still hadn't put on weight.
right.
Yeah. So, yay, Shay. Awesome. So I put this here. This was maybe a year or so later. You can see that this is you had started to develop a pooch here.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So the pooch started to come. You remember how old you were here? Maybe 16?
I think I was 15. Um, I was 15 or 16. This is
Mm-hmm.
when we lived in the Bay Area, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so at this point, you had already hit puberty. You had already started your period. Now, do you recall if you were having difficult periods at this time?
Um, I don't remember. I remember the first couple years they weren't super terrible. I mean, I was super crampy all the time. And I just like never felt good and I never knew why. And I just thought that was normal. Um, but it's not, obviously. I think this was around when my period started to get bad, of being super heavy and me being nauseous and just I was so tired and I just wanted to sleep all the time. And yes, teenagers like to sleep, but this was
Excessive.
more than normal. This was excessive sleeping.
And there was at that point, I think that you hadn't gotten to the point yet where your mind was not ready yet to deal with your
No,
past
not at
trauma.
all.
So we don't know for sure at that point how much that past trauma was really impacting you and your
Yeah,
health.
yeah,
Um, let's skip over to some of these pictures here. So we brought these pictures in just to show you the difference between her face. So we've got this narrow face and then we have a round face. You want to talk about what was going on in your life when these pictures were taken with your narrow face? I think you were what, about 17 here?
I think I might have been 19. 19.
Okay.
Because I know the bottom one, I had graduated high school. I was working at the mall. Um,
So you got into, let's talk about okay, so you were 18, you were a
mhm,
senior in high school, and that summer there started to be some pretty traumatic times. You were
yeah.
already like at that point having really heavy periods, but
Mhm.
mentally and mental health wise, you want to share what happened?
Yeah, I started to have flashbacks and night terrors, and I became afraid to sleep, so I wouldn't. And so I went like 4 or 5 days without sleeping, and with lack of sleep, you can start to go clinically insane, which was what I was on the verge of, and I was just afraid to sleep, and I started to just become suicidal where I had a few attempts. Thankfully, I was unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And so that was the time where I was super harmful to myself and my body and coping in all the wrong ways. And I started drinking super heavily, and um,
Hear the thunder.
that is under. And I started drinking super heavily to cope, just essentially to try to drink myself to death.
Mhm.
And I also got into some heavy drugs. So the bottom left picture, I was still on a coke binge, so I was still pretty high off cocaine, um, and I believe 7 years sober now. So it's been super amazing to see the difference in my life now versus then. But you can see how skinny my face is,
Yeah.
um, of just the mental load I took of trying to cope with drugs and alcohol on the left side. And then the right side is my normal face, not on drugs. Um, so
Which
yeah,
looking at your face where it's very full versus your face now, we're gonna
yeah,
get to why there's a difference, but we
there
will get
is.
to that. But you can obviously see there's your face was quite full
Mhm.
versus, drugs versus no drugs.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah,
so you wanna share so you started having flashbacks,
yeah.
and just from a mom's perspective, I can share how difficult that time period was, because I know you were very reckless with your
Yeah, I was.
decisions. You would take off and we wouldn't know where you were for, a couple of days. You turn your phone off, you turn your phone location off, no
Mhm.
response to text messages, phone calls. There were times where we were contemplating whether we needed to call the police.
Yeah.
Um, it was a really, really stressful time, uh, and we didn't know, you weren't sharing with us what was going
No.
on. Um, do you remember when you first decided to go ahead and share what was happening?
I think I had come home from a binge, and I was just at my wit's end. This was in between junior and senior year. Um, and dad and I were not very close growing up. Uh, he was just always working, and it takes a lot for me to feel like I can tell someone stuff,
Mhm.
and just we weren't there yet. And I came home and I was just in tears, and you guys were mad at me, um, rightfully so. Um, and I just broke down to dad, and he just sat down with me and basically had a matter of fact conversation of, you are not treating your mom with respect and with love, um, and this is not okay. And I just broke down. Um, and that was the first time I told anybody, um, that I didn't wanna be alive anymore, and, like, what I was really going through and what I was really kinda struggling with. Of I was also not eating, and if I wasn't eating good things. I was eating garbage, a lot of fast food and junk food.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't care if you wanna live and you
No.
don't care about your body, um, you're gonna eat whatever, so how nice. I love your smile.
Thank
She
you.
it's Would you say it was a mask?
Oh,
Had
absolutely.
moments of being happy. So, yeah,
I
the
think I think absolutely I was masking with drugs and alcohol, and,
and the smile was often a mask.
it was, for sure.
Mhm.
Like, just even saying the bottom right picture, I was in an emotionally, abusive relationship then, and nobody would have known just looking at the picture.
Right.
I was miserable at that time in life. I hated myself. I gained a bunch of weight. I was losing my hair, and I have naturally really thick hair, and I was
Very
losing
thick.
my hair in clumps and clogging the drain weekly. That's how much I was losing my hair.
Yeah, that was a really low point
Yeah,
in your life, and
yeah,
the smile on your face, you would never know it.
no. And you can see in the top left picture, just how thin the top of my hair is versus now. My hair is not
Oh, yeah, your
as
hair is very thick now. You have it all
yeah,
straight iron, but it was yeah,
I
your hair is
do, yeah,
thick. So I when I found out that you were having these flashbacks, the first thing, and of course, I needed we needed to address the fact that you were making horrible decisions. You
yeah.
wanna talk about the contract?
To be able to earn the trust back from my mother and my father, but more specifically my mom, and I'm grateful for this to this day, um, is I had to sign a contract um, where I no longer had my car. I had to take the bus. I had to get a job and take the bus to that said job. There was a bunch of different things, and she had access to my phone. Type parent. She's very much I trust my kids. This is their privacy kind of person, but if you're doing something, I'm going to check. Kind of thing. Is if you lose the trust and I'm the one that's paying for that phone, it's my responsibility as your parent to check. Kind of thing. So I had no car privileges. I had
Therapy,
I had to go to therapy. I had to go what is called Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christian and church-based, AA, and she went with me.
but it's for any
It's for anything, but I went they when you get there, they have worship, and then they separate into different groups, and so I went with the AA group, um, and so she also had access to my brush, so she could drug test me at any moment, and, um, I had to
and
follow everything. There was more,
there was no drugs, like
no
yeah,
drugs at
no drugs.
all. I had to follow it down to the letter, and if I messed up even once, I had to start that entire year over again, and I think I did that once 3 months in, and I had to start that whole year over again, and I was so mad and disappointed in myself, but I did it.
Yeah, yeah. And the therapy, you know, as far as the PTSD, um, it's not an overnight fix, that's for
No.
sure. And I know that we had episodes, and one time I ended up taking you to the ER,
Yeah, you
but
did.
we had episodes where you started having um like awake flashbacks
Mhm.
to where you would just be gone. I could see in
Yeah,
your eyes you weren't there anymore.
right.
And um, I know one of them at the time I didn't know not to interrupt your flashbacks, and I
Yeah,
interrupted one of them, and you came to not knowing me,
yeah. I
not
didn't
knowing where
yeah,
you were. You hid behind the curtains in our family room.
yeah,
I was afraid because I thought, is am I going to get her back?
yeah.
So
I
the
mean, I don't remember that, but I know hearing about it, it makes me so sad,
yeah,
because my mom's always been my best friend and my safest person. So not knowing who she was, makes me really sad.
it was yeah, it was very scary. It
Yeah,
was really, and to see that she was this back to being this little 3-year-old.
yeah,
I remember you telling me one of your awake, you would stop breathing, and I
yeah,
think that's the reason why I tried to wake you up out of that one, but you had
yeah,
another one where you were just standing in the kitchen and you were just staring and you were gone. You can tell by your
yeah,
eyes you weren't there, and I knew at that point not to interrupt it. And so when you came back, you told me that you were back and you were laying on you see a white carpet, and there was I think it was a man choking you, over you
yeah,
choking you, and a woman standing behind.
yeah, it was, I had a male figure, and at this point, I never saw faces.
Right.
They were just blurred faces, but I could see the silhouette and everything else. So I could see the hair and the arms and everything else, but I couldn't see the face. So for the longest time, I couldn't figure out who these people were because obviously they were someone in my past,
Right.
uh, but I couldn't figure it out.
How long did it take you, do you remember, before you could actually see a face?
I figured it out without the faces,
Mhm, okay.
um, but I think it took me about a year, maybe a year and a half to figure out exactly who it was, or at least seeing the face. But I knew who it was after about 6 months.
Yeah, and it was your foster
Yeah.
parents, that foster parents, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So, let's talk a little bit, these are more recent pictures, so
Yeah.
this will lead into it. You can see on the left how bloated she is.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about food. So, you ended up as
Oh, great.
everybody says, we have Celebrate Recovery in North Carolina. Yes, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful program, and it's not just for substance abuse. It's for I ended up going for codependency, and when I required her to go, I we all went.
Mhm.
So
It became a family affair.
we ended up all going because, of course, we wanted to be there to support her. So, yeah, it's a really wonderful program. If you do have that resource around you and you need help, you can do it for food addiction, whatever. It's a
Mhm.
really wonderful program. Um, so, so, so you started. Okay, so we had a couple things. So you were starting to have a lot of difficulty with your period, and you
Yeah.
started getting very, very painful periods. And then you found out that you were lactose intolerant.
Yeah. So I've always struggled with digesting any dairy. So I just naturally avoided it. But earlier, either late last year or early this year, I started to have more allergic reactions to it,
Mhm,
to where my tongue would swell and my throat would get all scratchy and swell and my face would get puffy. Then I'd get this rash all over my chest and my stomach everywhere. So it became more allergic reaction. So I had to cut it out 100%
mhm.
instead of taking lactate pills, which didn't really do a whole lot for me.
Yeah.
Um,
And initially the lactate pills seemed to help, but then they
yeah, but then they stopped.
yeah. And so we it was surprising because the picture on the left where you're extremely bloated, I mean, you look pregnant there.
I do, yeah.
You weren't doing dairy.
No, I wasn't.
So there was still something in your diet that was causing you to bloat up. And
Right.
so you want to share a little bit about your current relationship and, what's going on and what led to us talking more about your diet and your endometriosis and your future fertility.
So currently I'm engaged. I'm planning a whole wedding. So that's kind of what I'm in the thrills of. He's amazing. I met him at church. He proposed at church. So it's been the best. It's very interesting to see a healthy relationship after many abusive and toxic ones. So it's been an adjustment and kind of reverting back to bad habits of being a little kid and not accepting compliments, even from him. Of He'll call me beautiful every single day, and I'll be like,
Mhm.
"What do you want?" kind of thing. But he's like, "You know you are, right?" I'm like, "I know, but I don't feel it." Like,
Yeah.
"Okay, well, we're gonna fix that." Um, and he's helped me with so many things and hurdles of even if life is positive and positive life changes are happening, flashbacks and night terrors can slip in.
Mhm.
And those kinds of things can slip in, even if it is a positive change in life.
Mhm.
So I'll be going from living with my parents to living a city away. Um, and so it's going to be different. I'll still be close enough to see my parents quite often. but not having them down the hall is gonna be a little weird.
And you were about to do trauma therapy
I was. Yeah,
and
I was.
back in early 2020, and then we know what happened with that.
Right.
You know,
And then I
everything
kind of
just
chickened
goes right
out,
to halt.
but I've been thinking more about it of I think it might be beneficial for my future marriage if I do it, but
Yeah, yeah, you were getting ready to do EMDR, which needs to
yeah.
be done in person, and then the whole world shut down, and it
Mhm.
was just not something you could do on a video, uh,
No.
but do a video appointment. So, you know, so yeah, so with the engagement, I know you told me you've had some flashbacks that have,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing with PTSD is that even positive change can trigger some things.
Yeah.
So your endometriosis got worse.
It did.
Okay.
And so I had once I got diagnosed with endometriosis, I've always had a fear of doctors. Not that I need to, just being in a doctor's office makes me nervous, whether it be from early childhood or back surgery or what have you. So I always avoided getting on birth control for that reason. But my mom always encouraged me to because it could help. Um, and so I got an IUD, and earlier this year, just a couple months ago, I actually went in to see if it would be beneficial to get it removed, um, and just kind of going over the pros and cons of that.
So you
'Cause
wanna
it's like,
share why you were
yeah,
thinking about getting it removed?
um, because we want to have kids, and we want to have kids like right away
Mhm.
if we're able to, and we don't want any hindrance. And I kind of wanted to see if that it would be beneficial to not have the IUD in to kind of uh, feel my body again, but my periods are so terrible and awful,
Mhm.
um, and physically debilitating of I can't move. It's like, "Don't touch me at all," and in tears a lot of times of it's so much pain, um, and I don't like taking pain meds because they don't sit well on my stomach either,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, you've
so
always
it's kind of a double-edged sword of you need to take the pain meds to help you feel better, but also I feel nauseous after I do it.
right, right. So you decided to keep it in. Let's wait
Yeah,
till
I
after the
decided.
wedding, not
Mhm.
risk having a horrible, miserable day on your wedding if you have your period at the time, because I know
Right.
your legs get weak and jelly-like, which is very common with
Yeah.
endometriosis.
Yeah, and it's like I have such bad, knees, when I'm on my period, like, my knees hurt and feel like someone took a hammer to them of I need to sit down or I need to lay down and have my feet up kind of thing, and a lot of times I ice them because 'cause they're so inflamed,
Yeah.
so it's like that's another kind of, symptom that I have.
Yeah, so here's a book recommendation for you called The Body Keeps the Score. It's such a helpful resource about how the body, mind, emotions remember trauma.
Yeah.
Excellent recommendation.
I think I've actually heard of that book. I think that's on
Okay.
my, audiobooks to, or it's one of my books to read.
Oh, well, maybe you should start reading it. She's
Yeah.
just happy you're getting married.
Thank
You are
you.
very beautiful. Yes, you
Thank
are.
you.
So I don't know what TFCBT is. So maybe you can spell it out. Let us know. So we started having this conversation. So this kind of leads up to where we are at this point. We started having this
Mhm.
conversation about your endometriosis, your desire to start trying to have kids right away. Um,
Yeah.
we obviously have this issue with you like instantly bloating. I mean, this bloating
Mhm.
is happens so fast. I mean, you can have
It does, yeah.
it's pretty incredible how you can go from being pretty normal. And I mean, you're curvy now, and yeah, you do have some weight that you could lose, but the
Yeah.
bloating in the belly is pretty profound. And you had cut out all the dairy products. Uh,
Mhm.
and so we were having a discussion about like what, you were concerned because of your history with surgery about going in and possibly having surgery for the endometriosis.
Yeah.
So we started talking about diet
Mhm.
and how diet can help. And of course, you've seen me on the carnivore diet, right?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So what have you noticed about with me on the carnivore diet?
You're a lot less sluggish. Um, I mean, you do have your, conditions that, um, don't help with that, but I think your diet has, had a good contribution to you're
Mhm.
not so sluggish, you're wearing jeans again, which
Yeah.
I hadn't seen you in jeans in years,
Yeah.
so that's been really nice, and you just have this glow and confidence in yourself, um,
Yeah.
and you
But
carry yourself higher.
when you look at when you look at the dietary recommendations for endometriosis, it says to avoid red meat, right?
Right, it does. So I
So
was avoiding it like the plague, and I love steak. I'm a steak girl, so it was
yeah,
very
but you
sad.
were avoiding red meat because of that. And
Yeah,
here I am encouraging you to try a carnivore diet.
mhm,
Um, there were there was in encouraging you to try any particular diet is a challenge because of the control issues in your past when it comes to food.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I was trying to help you, but there was resistance there, which I completely understood. And then I learned about, and I've showed this book before, Toxic Superfoods with Sally K. Norton. I learned about oxalates.
mhm,
And I got the book and I was reading through all the different symptoms that oxalates can cause. And the oxalates are the plant toxins that just can't be cooked, peeled, or boiled, or soaked out of a food than vegetables. And you loved vegetables. In
I
fact,
do.
you were a vegetarian for a while, right?
I was, so after leaving the abusive relationship, I wanted to get my body back to normal. I ended up losing, like, 40, 50 pounds, so I was pretty heavy then, um, and I started to gain my hair back, but I missed meat, so I kind of and I was more pescatarian, so I ate fish, um, so I was vegetarian for, I think, a pescatarian for, I think, a whole year
Hmm.
before I went back to
Yeah.
eating meat other than fish.
Yeah. So you did lose weight,
I did.
but you didn't see improvement in the endometriosis.
No, I didn't see improvement in the endometriosis, or the bloat. I was
Yeah.
still pretty bloated more often than not.
And that company that was with gas too. I mean,
Yeah,
the belching, the other
uh-huh,
end, you know,
yeah,
you're the queen, that's for sure.
yeah, I can, belch any grown man under the table.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. So when I read in the book that endometriosis is could be one of the things for oxalates, I instantly brought it to your attention and to your
Mhm,
fiance's attention.
yeah,
And because you guys want to have kids. I mean, he's like
mhm.
dying. He cries every time he sees a baby.
So cute.
He gets all teary-eyed. He's so ready to be a dad.
It's really cute.
Yeah. So eh, so can you tell me like the first, and I encourage you to take baby steps. And
Mhm.
so can you share what your first step was with changing your diet?
My first step was to cut out just a few things. So I cut out almonds, I cut out spinach, um, and I cut out, or I cut down my carb intake.
Okay.
I believe I cut down something else, and I forget exactly what I did. I'll
But you had
remember.
been eating
Yeah,
spinach. You'd been adding a lot of spinach. You'd been having
yeah.
some
I ate a
soup.
lot of spinach because
Yeah.
I didn't like regular lettuce. Because I was
But you
always taught as
also
a kid, the more colorful your plate is, the healthier it
Mhm.
is. And
Yeah.
so I always if it's not a rainbow on my plate, it's not healthy in my mind.
Yeah, and I
S
taught you that because that's what
Yeah.
I was taught.
Yeah, and so I had to kind of reteach myself of, "Okay, this change is okay. This is good. Nobody else is controlling this but me,
Mhm,
and I can go as slow or as quickly as I want."
mhm. And so what did you notice when you just cut out those things? And you also added red meat into your diet.
I did. I added red meat back into my diet, which is amazing. I've missed red meat.
Yeah.
It's actually been quite a few years since I had red
Yeah.
meat.
Yeah, you've been avoiding it.
Um,
It's all been lean chicken.
it's been chicken, pork,
Pork.
fish, uh, which I
Yeah.
think I might end up cutting pork out.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not sure yet, but we'll see.
Okay. So what changes have you noticed?
My pants that used to be too tight, are now too loose. So that's
Mhm.
really nice. I'm not bloated as much. I still bloat a little bit. And so we're still figuring out, okay, do I need to cut this out? What else do I need to cut out? Um, so it's just
Do
figuring that out
do you
as
find
well.
that you're maybe a little more aware and paying closer attention to what you're eating and watching to
Yeah.
see if it causes that bloat?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, I guess it's good that your body tells you right away if it doesn't like something.
Yeah. Yeah. My body is pretty sensitive to food. So if I eat something that is a typical person could eat and be fine and not bloat, I might bloat.
Mhm.
And it would be pretty immediate,
Yeah.
like 5-10 minutes after eating, and I'd be like, "Oh, my pants don't fit. I need to unbutton my pants." Um,
Right. Right.
like so bloated that I have a Thanksgiving tummy is what I call it.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I'll have to unbutton my pants for them to not feel like I'm suffocating. So that's just been one big change
So,
is
which is
my
amazing
bloat.
that just getting rid of some of the higher oxalate
Yeah.
foods has made a huge difference
Mhm.
for you.
Yeah, I
And
started with the highest oxalate foods,
mhm.
and I'm kind of slowly moving down the list, and I think my brain's kind of ready to start decreasing a few more.
Yeah, you wanna share how you got over your egg, um, issue? Because I know eggs were very like, you would not eat eggs, and understandably,
I would not eat eggs.
if you had a foster mom that tied you up with a dog leash and shoved eggs down your
Yeah,
throat, it's completely
yeah,
understandable.
yeah.
So but now you can eat eggs. You wanna share how that came
I
about?
can. They're not my favorite, so they're not my go-to.
Understandably.
Um, but my mom and dad would always have to warn me if they're making eggs, 'cause the smell of eggs cooking made me so nauseous, and it was so revolting to me, and I think that was very much trauma in my head of this
Mhm,
smell was terrible for me. So it started off with them just telling me so I could avoid it until they were done. But my mom actually encouraged me to, why don't you start making your eggs on your own?
mhm.
And then that started but I'm scared. I don't know how. And so she taught me how to make scrambled eggs, and I could add anything to them. I could take anything away, and I very much made it my own.
And initially, you were I mean, doused it with different seasonings and
I
spices.
did. I did.
Yeah, which was okay
Yeah.
because that's you had the control
Yeah.
over your eggs, and I think that was the thing that we were really focused on was that, no one is forcing you
Right.
to make eggs.
Yeah.
You're choosing to do it. You're choosing how
Yep.
you prepare them and, the
Right.
seasonings that you use. So now, have you been able to cut back on those seasonings now?
I have. Now I just use a little bit of salt and pepper or everything but the bagel seasoning
Mhm.
and call it a day. Sometimes I
What's
put a
your
little hot sauce on it if I'm feeling a little spicy. Um, but I think our biggest goal with me and scrambled eggs specifically is nobody should be afraid of food.
right?
At least nobody should be afraid of just specific foods because of trauma.
Yeah,
So it was just really trying to find that healing in a safe way. So
yeah.
for years, I only ate hard boiled eggs or sunny side up eggs.
Mhm.
Those were the only eggs ate.
Yeah, because your
And it would,
experience was with
yeah,
scrambled eggs.
yeah. And it took me years to be able to um, be comfortable with having my mom make my eggs. So having a female make my
Right.
eggs.
That's
So it
right.
always had to be my dad or
Yeah.
myself. Um,
And now you
And
can eat the eggs that I make.
yeah, and so it was just one day I asked her, I'm like, "Mom, can you make my eggs? I think I'm ready." And so we did. Um, and for years, I wasn't even able to eat scrambled eggs in a restaurant.
Right.
Um, and then one day I'm like, "You know what? I'm gonna try it. We're gonna see how this goes. And
Yeah.
if I can't do it, I can't do it, and that's okay."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I mean, the advice I always gave you over the years was to face your fears.
right, yeah. And then I
Yeah.
ended up eating the whole thing, and then I, like, teared up in the restaurant of, like,
Mm,
I just ate eggs. Like, I just did this.
right.
They're not my favorite, not my favorite texture, and that's okay. And I think I called her crying in the car, like, "I just ate eggs for
Yeah.
the first
Yeah. You
time."
were very emotional because it
I
wasn't about the
was.
eggs. It was about you regaining control
Yeah, it's like,
over your decisions and food.
"Oh, yeah,
So, yeah,
absolutely."
it's been quite a journey. So, okay, so we have a definition and explanation of the TFCBT, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. It's an evidence-based treatment for children and adolescents impacted by trauma and their parents or caregivers. Thank you for sharing
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I think that, we have talked about you going and making sure that you do go get that trauma therapy,
Mhm.
especially as you're going to be entering a new life with being
Right,
married. I've talked to your fiance about this. I mean, we don't know what's going to trigger. Like if you have the young
right,
children, we don't know if something might trigger a flashback, and you
right,
can't be having a 2-year-old and suddenly you're gone and you're now
right,
back to being 3
right, exactly.
and you're the one who's supposed to be caring for this 2-year-old.
Mhm.
So it's something that you know, obviously she has to be ready.
Yeah.
Um, so Pat said it had kidney stones in the beginning thanks to oxalates. Yeah, oxalates cause kidney stones.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We were making smoothies out of spinach and fruits. No wonder I could hit got kidney stones. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
people.
I put a lot of spinach in my smoothies. That was, like, my base was
Oh
spinach.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I love veggies. It's so hard to reprogram my mind to try only meat.
Me too.
That's one reason why I wanted to have her on because yeah, I'm full carnivore. In fact, I have to be on the lion diet. I'm very strict. But one thing I try to share is that everybody is in their own place. And, I think that we can all agree that we want to improve our health and the motivation is different for each of us. And we have to be at the place where we're ready to make changes. And for a long time, you weren't at that place because you were in a very
Yeah.
self destructive mode.
Mhm.
Um, but there's a more motivation. You have a fiance who's going to be your husband. You two want to
Yeah.
have children. There's a lot of reason to start making some changes.
Right.
Making smoothies at one time also. Yeah, I tell you, those smoothies tout them as being so healthy. Being
Yeah.
vegetarian made you sick. Yeah. So past fibromyalgia, kidney disease, chronic gout that would not go away.
Yeah.
The meat made it all go away. Here I am 6 years later. Yeah, Pat was on my live stream last night. She has an amazing
Oh,
story.
cool.
Yeah, and so she has been carnivore for a long time, and meat has healed everything.
Yeah.
Um, it's the best and safest way to eat. Just got done with the ribeye and some goat cheese. Yes, yes. A lot of people with
That sounds
lactose
delicious.
can handle goat cheese.
Yeah,
So,
but I am not one of those people, unfortunately.
yeah. Well, and as your gut heals
Yeah.
and
Who
as
knows?
things
I
heal
might be
in
able to.
your body, you never know.
Yeah.
So, what is your plan for? I know we've encouraged baby steps. You've been taking baby steps. What is
Mhm.
your plan for your diet as you move forward? I mean, where are you at right now with your endometriosis? Have you noticed any changes? I know it's not 100% cured with the way things are at.
So for my endometriosis, I'm still having quite a lot of those cramping, but it could be just stress related of
Mhm,
wedding planning and hurdles with that. We're also renovating a house at the moment.
mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
just wedding planning, renovating a house,
Oh, yeah,
work,
his runners moved out and left him with
all
a
the things,
disaster, so
all the things. So we essentially gutted a house that we're going to be living in. So I think my struggle with my periods lately is more stress induced than diet induced.
Mhm.
So it's kind of hard to tell at the moment. Um, so I'm hoping by wedding time or after, I'll get to really see what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I still get my knees hurt really bad, and I get a lot of headaches when I'm on my period.
Yeah. So
Um,
it may be at some point, are you considering cutting back even more? I know you've diminished
yeah.
like the starchy carbs that you're eating.
Yeah, so I'm not eating potatoes. I'm also trying to cut down on rice, and my fiance and I love rice, so we eat a lot.
Hmm.
So just cutting back on that and cutting back my intake of breads and pastas. And I was very much making sandwiches all the time.
Hmm.
So I've cut back on doing that. So I don't do that anymore.
How
And
about
I've
sugar?
that's another thing. I'm a sugar person, so I think my biggest thing is cutting it out in my drinks to start, and
Mhm.
getting less sugary drinks. I'm not drinking soda. Um, I'm not uh, ordering the sugary coffee drinks. I'm making coffee at home. It's also
Okay.
saving me some money, so that's nice.
Yeah. So
Um,
you've taken some baby
yeah,
steps. So you're
I'm
not
taking some baby
completely
steps,
completely
and
off
I'm in the
sugar.
yeah, and I'm in the process of on my plate is slowly decreasing my veggie size on my plate or my
Okay.
veggie portion on my plate to where it's more meat, but also, finding the happy medium of eating enough meat to feel satiated for longer periods of time. Because 'cause I'm also notorious for not eating breakfast and also sometimes not eating lunch to where dinner's where it's at for me.
Yeah.
Um,
And you're able to use ghee.
I use ghee. I use ghee all the time. Ghee is my favorite thing. Got a
Mhm.
giant thing from Costco.
And you have started using some beef tallow too. Is that
I did. I actually really like it.
Shay's an amazing cook. Yeah, I think that that's kind of hard too with having to restrict what you're eating.
Yeah,
You did. You made a rainbow on your plate.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a
I
very,
used to
very
make
good.
I used to make stir fries and all of the things but
So
cooking
Pat,
is my therapy.
yeah. So, okay, Pat, sorry, I don't know your name. Is this your daughter? I came in late. Yes. So I'm Lynn. This is my daughter, Shay. Yes, we announced it just a little bit later it was early on in the live stream, but it was a little bit, not at the beginning. We did share that, yes, she is my daughter who we adopted, and she was 5.5 when she came to live with us. So you can go back and listen. I mean, she has an amazing story. I mean, just an incredible story. Um, so let's see. When I eat goat cheese with my steak, it's only 2 tablespoons because cheese will constipate. So I'm careful with it and don't eat it all the time.
Yeah, that would also be my issue on top of all the other, symptoms of facial swelling, tongue swelling, all of the things.
Yeah. And
So
so
it
you
would
do have,
affect it would affect my bowel movements too.
yeah. And you've had some problems with constipation in the
Yeah,
past. Yeah.
yeah.
So how do you feel now about, the control you have over your food choices?
It's interesting to see. I do really well when I'm at home,
Hmm.
but when I'm out and about, I have a lot of anxieties with ordering food. Um, Whether it be I don't know if they're gonna cook it with dairy in it. I don't know, uh, it's like a lot of unknowns for me, and that does not go well in my brain. I need to know all of the things. I'm really nosy in that way.
Yeah. And I see
Um,
you being afraid to ask the server.
yeah, I get super afraid to ask, and so my fiancé will actually oftentimes order for me, and so he's been really challenging me to it's like, "Do you want me to order?" It's like, "I got it. I can do it." So,
Okay.
he's been kind of holding my hand through that process of, being anxious of, I've got a dairy allergy, I need it to be dairy free, and those kinds of things, and so it's oftentimes restaurants are super good about it,
Hmm.
and then I, like, freeze and, like, I don't know how to answer the next question.
Yeah. So
Uh,
there's still a little bit of fear
yeah,
and
absolutely.
possibly from your early childhood and this trust issues with
Right.
people that you don't know.
Yeah, fear with food for me is not gonna go away overnight. It's been 20 years, of a healing process, um, and probably more years to come because food's always changing for me. I don't know if I'll be 100% carnivore. I don't know if I'll be partially carnivore, and no carb and or just carnivore and low oxalate vegetables kind of thing,
Yeah. So maybe more of a
and just
keto or ketovore.
yeah,
But it sounds like you're at least willing to pay attention to what your body doesn't like
yeah,
and start eliminating those things. And that's a
absolutely,
huge, huge step.
absolutely,
Yeah. So Pat says, gotta cut out the sugars. It's a must to
yeah.
detox. Yeah.
So I'm
So
in the
that's something
process.
in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
very much not been the best, and I've been nibbling at some Halloween candy from work, so
You
it's
want to
not the
share what
best
you
for
do?
me.
You want to share what you do for work?
So I'm a children's pastor, and I oversee the whole children's program at my church, and we had a bunch of candy this past Sunday, to because kids love candy. Um,
Isn't it amazing how you went from being self-destructive,
yeah,
doing drugs, being reckless with your
yeah,
life
yeah,
to now you're a children's pastor?
yeah. See, I always knew I was going to be work in ministry, and I fought it for many years of thinking I wasn't good enough or thinking my past is too destructive and too dark for it to help anybody. But I fully believe that my story is meant to be heard and it's
I
meant
agree.
to help someone else.
That's why I feel like you're brave to come on here and do this with
Yeah,
me because this is not your comfort zone.
not at all.
Yeah, but I mean, this is me. I always push you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
And I
yeah,
want to, if my story of mental health and food is able to help someone else feel comfortable to even just start somewhere, um,
right.
I'm absolutely willing to do that. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And you're on a journey that a lot of us have been on, and there's a lot of people who may be considering the carnivore diet, but they don't really they're kind of maybe afraid to go all meat all at once,
yeah,
or they may have some
yeah,
mental health issues and past issues with food like you have. And I think that, the biggest message I want to get out there is it's okay to take those baby steps.
yeah, yeah,
And because even the things you've done have already made improvements in your health,
yeah,
and I want my
yeah.
grandkids.
I mean, my father has said, "I need you to be a baby making machine." Like,
That's right. Now
can can we
we
get
have
married first?
We have grandkids already from now. You want to share a little bit about your older sister since we're
Uh,
still here. So let's share a little bit about your older sister, Catherine.
so I've got, out of the 8 siblings or out of the 8 biological kids, um, 4 of us have the same bio mom and bio father. Back in 2017, thank you, Facebook, I messaged, Catherine, my full sibling,
Hmm.
um,
She's the one that was 6 years older than you that was taking
that
care
was
of you
6 years
when you
older
were
than
an
me.
infant.
Absolutely. I messaged her on Facebook in February of 2017. We had already planned a trip to Louisiana and Texas for a family reunion. We also had some family in Texas, which is also where she lives. So I met her in May of
We all met her.
2017, all of us, and spent all of July and part of August of that year with her. Um, and she just connected with our family right away, and it was beautiful. And my parents actually legally adopted her as an adult, as a 29-year-old.
Hmm.
And
Back in 2019.
my parents had 2 immediate grandkids. And last year she had another baby
Yep.
and has been able to carry on the family name of Grace with that little baby. Um,
You want to share your original name and what we changed it to?
oh boy. It was so my birth name was Shantiwa Dawn Ghazi. So Shantewa, and then it turned to Shaylee in foster care. But more often than not, I go by Shay. And they changed my middle name to Grace.
Yeah, which was my
Um,
mother and my grandmother's name.
so I am the first to be named Grace after someone else, after my grandma.
And
And
it's so
then,
appropriate for your life.
yeah, I think so. I've been given a lot of grace in life, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And then our new granddaughter is her middle name is Grace as well.
yeah.
And then
Well,
Catherine, when we adopted her,
yeah.
she already had my name as her middle name, but she added Grace. So she has
Yeah.
a double middle name.
So it's
Grace Lynn.
Catherine Lynn.
Isn't it Grace Lynn?
No, it's Catherine Lynn
Lynn
Grace. So
Grace?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
anyway, so yeah, so it's like pretty amazing the things that have happened in our lives. So yes, I do have 3 grandchildren in Texas, which I hardly ever get to see, but you will be having our local grandkids. Um,
yeah,
yeah. So let's just kind of get caught up on these comments, and then we're going to call it a day. Pellegrino, yes, I use San Pellegrino a lot because to
yeah,
me it actually tastes kind of sweet. It helped me cut my
mhm,
sugar addiction,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, so that's
It
good.
also helps my digestive issues. For me, carbonation. Some people it doesn't help having that carbonation, but for me, it does.
Hmm.
So
And for me, it just makes me gassy. But
a lot of times I have like gas trapped. Uh, so it's like I need to get it out. So the
right.
carbonation kind of helps me get it out. It's gross, but it works and it helps me feel better.
Yeah. So Esther Vetty says, when I look back at my younger self, I have always said that I was a meat lover. It's not surprising to me that I'm gravitating towards carnivore. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird because she was always a vegetable lover. I mean,
Yeah.
when she was young, she was one of those strange kids that I'd give her a plate and she'd eat all the vegetables before she'd eat anything else.
Yeah.
And so it's maybe a little bit more why it's a little more challenging to
Yeah.
eat the meat, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very
I'm
important.
also very much a texture person. Texture is very triggering for me when it
Mhm.
comes to food. So different like fats. So I have to I'll cook with the fat. I have no problem cooking with the fat because it adds flavor, it makes it delicious. But when eating, I cut the fat off because it's like I can't do the texture of chewing on it. Some people like it. I
We don't
can't do
know
it.
what the future holds. I mean, of course,
Right.
fat is very healthy, but we
Yeah.
don't know what the future holds. She won't touch my little fat crisps that I make in the air fryer.
I've tried them. I don't like them at
No,
all.
she doesn't like them. So Pat's very encouraging. She says you can do this, Shay, and then you're going to feel that wonderful Zen feeling in your brain. And oh my goodness, you will never go back. Trust me.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's also another thing I've noticed is the more meat I eat and the less oxalates I eat, the more clarity I have in my brain.
That's right.
I very much have ADD brain, but I'm able to focus and hone in on one specific subject
Hmm.
rather than having 12 uh, open at one time.
It does impact your brain, and the fat
Yeah,
too is really good for your brain. So there's so
yeah,
many people that have turned to carnivore diet and have noticed improvement in their mental clarity, their mental health.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So see a couple more comments here. I'm originally from Louisiana. Yeah, we got most of my dad's
yeah,
family's in there, but I love
yeah.
Florida. I'm staying now, live near Destin. Okay, awesome. And then this is the first year I didn't have Halloween candy. Yay!
Good job.
I'm proud of you, Shay, for allowing yourself to be used to help others.
Thank you.
Awesome. 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 So my middle name is Lynn. Oh, wow. Awesome. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. So I'd like to let you kind of close it out. And if you had something to say to someone who is wanting to improve their health. I'm not going to say go on a carnivore diet because you're not on a carnivore diet, but wanting to improve their health with food, but is just kind of scared about making changes. What advice would you give them?
You have all the control.
There you go.
You've got all the control. It's
Yeah.
in nobody else's hands but yours. You can go as quickly or as slow as you can, or as slow as you want or need to. Um,
Hmm.
but keep your mental health in the forefront and not let it get to the back burner.
Right.
because food and mental health go hand in hand. Mental health is a part of everything you do, um, whatever you drink, whatever you're doing. So,
Yeah. Very good. Very good advice. All right. So yeah, gotta put up with the gas drinking carbonated water, but I'll take the trade off. Yeah. So it
yeah.
happens. All
It's
right.
either my stomach hurts or I drink some carbonated water and I feel better.
Yeah,
It's one or the other.
that's right. So, and hopefully at some point down the road,
Yeah,
you'll be able to maybe come back on and join me again and give an
yeah,
update on how you're doing. And,
absolutely.
I've shared on my channel that I'm really working towards some goals related to what being, where I want to be for your wedding, which is coming up next
Yeah,
May. And, so they're going to see you again,
yeah.
definitely as time goes by. So Shay, if you get that fat crispy, it's oh my goodness, delish. I agree.
See, but my mom doesn't get it crispy enough for me. It's
Yeah.
still too fatty.
So maybe I need to
That's
cook
that's
a
the only
little
thing.
bit more.
Like,
A
I
little,
need a borderline burnt for it to
yeah.
not
So maybe we
be,
can try
like,
that.
texturally gross.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So she says you have to become fat adapted. So keep trying the fat. It's very important. That's very good advice, Pat. Yeah. So slow, just like everything else you're
yeah,
doing with food, little baby steps with the fat.
and I'm very much am always willing to try something at least once, and if I don't like it, I'll wait, like, 6 months, and then I'll try it again.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I try it sooner, but
Yeah.
typically I wait a little bit because then your brain changes, your taste buds
Mhm.
change,
And it's
life
mental.
changes. Yeah,
And as your hormones heal and straighten out,
yeah,
changes in hormones can affect your taste as well. So,
right, exactly.
yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to see as you take more little steps towards eliminating those things your body doesn't like, your hormones hopefully will really straighten out. You'll see improvement.
Yeah,
Maybe your taste will change.
yeah, yeah. Because I
Okay.
think yeah,
Awesome. Okay. So I'm so happy that you joined me today. This has gone a little over, about an hour and 20 minutes. And I thank everybody who has been here with us. I appreciate all the comments. And I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye and hope everyone has a great day.